Henry George Daily Devotional, episode 62. We are again considering remedies currently advocated that are insufficient to explain the paroxysms in industrial labor. Why is there a boom and bust cycle? And George says the people who say it is from cooperation are wrong. Let's find out why. What do we think in this case cooperation means? In the last section, he said from the combinations of workmen, which I thought was something like uh, division of labor, improved means of cooperation, and it turned out that what he meant there was unions. I was a little late to figure that out. Perhaps this chapter is about better, or it's no, maybe it's our modern idea of a co-op where it's the laborer's own share in the ownership of the company. I know I have some friends who are Georgists who they think another major issue causing injustice in society is that we allow corporations to be formed and act as legal entities. They are granted legal status. You can get paid by a corporation or sued by a corporation, or you can sue a corporation, or a corporation can be liable. And this George's friend of mine says that leads to all sorts of ills, and it would be better to not grant legal status to a corporation. I don't think George talks about that specifically at all in Progress and Poverty, but I think it's interesting. Let us begin reading. George writes, "It is now and has been for some time the fashion to preach cooperation as the sovereign remedy for the grievances of the working class. But unfortunately for the efficacy of cooperation as a remedy for social evils, these evils, as we have seen, do not arise from any conflict between labor and capital. And if cooperation were universal, it could not raise wages or relieve poverty. This is readily seen." Again, capital does not include land. If you haven't been around George long, that's an important point. Cooperation is of two kinds: cooperation in supply and cooperation in production. Now, cooperation, I feel like my mic might be a little buzzy. Now, yeah, it's old. Now, cooperation in supply, let it go as far as it may in excluding middlemen, only reduces the cost of exchanges. It is simply a device to save labor and eliminate risk, and its effect upon distribution can be only that of the improvements and inventions which have in modern times so wonderfully cheapened and facilitate exchanges, viz. To increase rent. Well, it's been a little while since we saw viz. Remember, that means for example. And cooperation in production is simply a reversion to that form of wages which still prevails in the whaling service. Okay, we got an example. And is there termed a lay. Alright, I think we'll learn more about this. It is the substitution of proportionate wages for fixed wages. That's right. Everyone shares a piece of the whale when they catch one. It is a substitution of proportionate wages for fixed wages, a substitution of which there are occasional instances in almost all employments, or if the management is left to the workman and the capitalist but takes his portion of the net produce, it is simply the system that has prevailed to a large extent in European agriculture since the days of the Roman Empire. The colonial or métayer system. I don't remember this métayer system. Apparently, It is one that cultivates land for a share of its yield, usually receiving stocks, tools, and seed from the landlord. A sharecropper, perhaps. There's no difference, but yes, over here it says it's a kind of sharecropping. Sharecropping. All that is claimed for cooperation in production is that it makes the workman more active and industrious, in other words, that it increases the efficiency of labor. Thus, its effect is in the same direction as the steam engine, the cotton gin, the reaping machine, in short, all the things in which material progress consists, and it can produce only the same result, viz., the increase of rent. Oh, we're getting viz everywhere. Um, I will say that I'm pretty sure either here in Progress and Poverty or somewhere else, uh, George does think that in a society that is Georgist, that most forms of labor would be in co-ops. Um, And again, George is very much in favor of steam engines, cotton gins, reaping machine, and making things more efficient labor. And he's also against more efficient government. He just says that these things are not the cause of the poverty that we see. I mean, and they will not alleviate the poverty that we see. All right, George writes, it is a striking proof of how first principles are ignored in dealing with social problems that in current economic and semi-economic, semi, pop economic literature, so much importance is attached to cooperation as a means for increasing wages and relieving poverty. Um, yeah, okay. That it can have no such general tendency is apparent. All right, he says it's just clear, but we have a whole chapter still to go through. Is it long? No, I guess, well, he says it's clear and he's not going to spend too much time on it. George writes, waiving all the difficulties that under present conditions beset cooperation either of supply or of production, and supposing it so extended as to supplant present methods, that cooperative stores made the connection between producer and consumer with the minimum of expense, and cooperative workshops, factories, farms, and mines abolished the employing capitalist who pays fixed wages and greatly increased the efficiency of labor, what then? Why, simply that it would become possible to produce the same amount of wealth with less labor. Okay, I zoned out during this sentence. I believe I caught the drift by reading what then. So he's saying, I think, so what if we grant that all the cooperative uh, supporters got their way and that we had co-ops everywhere? So we grant them co-ops. What then? Will they actually help? He says, why? Simply that it would become possible to produce the same amount of wealth with less labor, and consequently that the owners of land, the source of all wealth, the land, not the owners, could command a greater amount of wealth for the use of, and then the could command goes back to the owners. That's tricky right there. Consequently, the owners of the land, the source of all wealth, that references land, and then it switches back to the owners, could command a greater amount of wealth for the use of their land. This is not a matter of mere theory, it is proved by experience and by existing facts. Improved methods and improved machinery have the same effect that cooperation aims at, of reducing the cost of bringing commodities to the consumer and increasing the efficiency of labor. It is in these respects that the older countries have the advantage of new settlements, but as experience has amply shown, improvements in the methods and machinery of production and exchange have no tendency to improve the condition of the lowest class, and wages are lower and poverty deeper where exchanges goes where exchange goes on at the minimum of cost and production has the benefit of the best machinery. The advantage adds to rent. Yes, this was much discussed that progress in the arts, as George phrased it, meaning what we would say technological progress, only adds to rent. The same with specialization or division of labor. The same with the increased productive powers of population increase. And now George says that cooperation is also the same mechanic. But suppose cooperation between producers and landowners. That would simply amount to the payment of rent in kind, the same system under which much land excuse me, is rented in California and the southern states, where the landowner gets a share of the crop, like a Mateer system, as we just learned. Save as a matter of computation, it in no wise differs from the system which prevails in England of a fixed money rent. Call it cooperation if you choose. The terms of the cooperation would still be fixed by the laws which determine rent, and wherever land was monopolized, increase in productive power would simply give the owners of the land the power to demand a larger share. That cooperation, yeah, I feel like my mic is like blown out or something. That cooperation is by so many maybe it's just the feedback mic in my headset. Let's feed out the speaker in my headset that it might be blown out. That cooperation is by so many believed to be the solution of the labor question arises from the fact that where it has been tried, it has in many instances improved perceptibly the condition of those immediately engaged in it. But this is due simply to the fact that these cases are isolated. Yes, we've gone through very similar progressions of thought. And again, in all of this discussion, we are looking for general tendencies. You could have one firm adopt some kind of efficient new method or develop some kind of progress in the arts, a technological breakthrough, and they will, for a time, have higher wages. But as soon as it becomes an industry trend, then it gets absorbed through the landowners. So yes, George says, but this is due simply to the fact that these cases are isolated. Just as industry, economy, or skill may improve the condition of the workmen who possess them in superior degree. Yes, that's even yes. At an individual level, yes. At an individual level, any of you guys could kick ass and earn a bunch of money. But we're talking about all y'all together, not just the rich kids. But cease to have this effect. Industry, economy, or skill will cease to have this effect when improvement in these respects becomes general. So a special advantage in this is like I tend to think any professional athlete right now, basketball player, football player, soccer player, hockey player, tennis player, golf player, cricket player, rugby player. How many sports could I list? Who knows? The weightlifters, even chess players, StarCraft Brood War players. If you were to have them go back in time and compete with the very first professionals, an a journeyman player today, an average level pro today, a bench warmer probably today, would be the dominant, uh, the dominant professional player 100 years ago. I don't know what my point is. Just let's see, what could my point possibly be? That individuals, yes, once everyone gets good, then yeah, I don't know. There's this there are relative values. I don't know, man. I I also don't think that all of the as an aside, I don't think the improvements in all these professional sports is so much that the raw material, so to speak, the human being has become genetically that in any way superior. Uh, I think it's simply much improved technique and other improvements in the arts, like better shoes and better surfaces to play on. And then a lot of it is just, again, as I said, the technique. Like when you grow up playing with really good players, you just jump to a bit higher level faster. And then there's also an argument about there's just way more people that have been born and way more people who do these activities. So there's just a greater distribution of skill. Anyway, I'm interested in those things too. So George writes, uh, when it becomes general, these industry economy or skill, um, they cease to have this effect when improvement in these respects becomes general. So a special advantage in procuring supplies or a special efficiency given to some labor may secure advantages which would be lost as soon as these improvements became so general as to affect the general relations of distribution or sports. And the truth is that, save possibly in educational effects, cooperation can produce no general results that competition will not produce. That's a fun little contrast. Just as, oh, why isn't this capitalized? Just as the cheap for cash stores, that's a weird term. Cheap for cash. Um, I guess that's just their 99-cent stores. I don't know. Just as the keep for cash stores have a similar effect upon price as the cooperative supply associations. Excuse me. So does competition in production lead to a similar adjustment of forces and divisions of proceeds as would cooperative production. We have time today. Let's look at cheap for cash. Alright, I'm giving up. That increasing productive power does not add to the reward of labor is not because of competition, but because competition is one-sided. Land without which there can be no production is monopolized, and the competition of producers for its use forces wages to a minimum and gives all the advantage of increasing productive power to landowners. Here when he's saying of producers, those are he's referencing laborers or people who want to work that land. Those are the ones who are competing for its use, and then the landowners suck it all up in higher rents and increased land values. Destroy this monopoly, and competition could exist only to accomplish the end which cooperation aims at, to give to each what he fairly earns. Destroy this monopoly, and industry must become the cooperation of equals. All right, short and sweet. Remember when I used to only go for like 10 or 12 minutes? Now I'm calling a 19-minute video short. My, how times have changed in our 12 and a half weeks together. Like, subscribe, share, and believe. No big deal. Bye bye. Oh, we didn't. Did we not even finish diffusion of education and improved habits of industry and thrift? Well, 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 well. Why is it not letting me? Fine. Anyway, three. Um, from from cooperation. So cooperation mean some people suggest that la- laborers owning a proportionate return to the produce rather than a fixed wage would alleviate depressions. Um, we've seen there already exist many examples of this in sharecropping and whaling. Um, they do provide a an improvement in producing wealth, just like other improvements, it's like other labor saving improvements, like um, they are absorbed completely by landowners. Of course, at an individual level or a single firm, may gain an advantage as soon as the labor saving technique is broadly adopted. No, no isolated advantage is gained. I think that's all I have to say about this. Am I précis? I left off over here. Talking about China and USA, England and Bengal. Oh, this is kind of fun. Wait, where was that? What was that graph? I don't know. I guess I don't know. Let's go to Keimer. People think poor people should just work harder. Hard work, intelligence are irrelevant. Education also provides only individual advantage once once broadly distributed, it disappears. Or it doesn't disappear. It's absorbed by landowners. Seems like minority races despair of education when they realize there realize there's no opportunity for them. Did I skip finishing this chapter? I think I may have. Yeah, I sure did. I did Remedy 2, start, and I did not finish it. Alright, well, now we'll have to come back. This I know is from yesterday. Unions uh unions can unions unions can raise wages for workers. Uh, this doesn't take this is by taking it from rent and not from other wages, as some suspect. Um, this tends to only work. This only works in pockets of um, society. Um, end temporarily. Once wages have been raised, more workers will come to that industry or that firm, pushing them down. Um, Unions rely on strikes to get their way. In a strike, labor and capital starve and decay. In a strike, land simply lies fallow, perhaps perhaps improving. Therefore, landowners can more easily endure strikes. Strikes also destroy a lot of wealth, as it is a kind of war. George is a member of a union, thinks collective bargaining has a role to play, but cannot address the fundamental issue. Sitting Dharna is the Hindu concept. Okie dokie artichoke. I liked when this didn't have any recommendations, briefly. We're in Book 6, Chapter 1. Remedy 4. Episode 62. Um, can co-ops can co-ops stop depressions? From cooperation. No, co-ops can't do it. Co-ops are a form of labor saving and so follow the same pattern. They help the first and isolated instances, but applied generally to society, and their advantage is absorbed by landowners. Copy that link. Oh, really? If we use the other. Huh. Okay. I always forget that now I want to do the Spotify upload first because it takes longer to generate that. Uh, what's it called? Preview, I guess. Generate that preview. Oh, I feel a headache. What is this? So long.